Merry meet my fairy souls, it is Niina and you are listening to the very first episode of Fairy Chamber Folklore Podcast. I am very excited about this. I've been getting lots of requests from people saying that I should make a podcast or I should record some of my folklore studies in an audio form, so that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I will do this in seasons, so it will be more manageable for me. So this will be the season 1 and I've been planning to do maybe 8 to 10 episodes for season 1. So those of you who are new here, my name is Niina, spelled Niina. I'm a Finnish folklorist and an illustrator. I'm specialized on Finnish folklore. In this podcast I will speak about myths and folklore from different parts of the world. But there will be heavy emphasis on Finnish and Finno-Baltic folklore because that is the main area of my research. And I'm also currently writing and illustrating a book about Finnish folklore, so it goes hand in hand with my current study. What I find interesting is that in many parts of the world, especially in the northern hemisphere, there is a synchronization when it comes to the ancient festivals and festivities. In many different countries and in many different cultures, September and October there are times to have festivals that really celebrate death and where we are connected to ancestors. This might seem a bit controversial to some people, but I sometimes get really frustrated when I see Halloween decorations in Finnish stores. Not because I have something against Halloween, I think it's a really cool holiday, but I personally think kekri is much cooler, and I wish that Finnish people would see the beauty of that old celebration and embrace it, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But maybe. I know that there are Finnish pagans who celebrate it. Majority of Finnish people don't even know what kekri is, but maybe I can make some kind of change of attitudes with this podcast. Who knows? So I wanted to talk to you about kekri and other autumn time celebrations that were part of this animistic worldview. When it comes to Finnish folklore, most of the resources that we have as modern researchers, the earliest literal sources come from the 17th century, and a lot of that has been written through Christian lens, so it's sometimes a bit of a struggle to evaluate which part of that collected wisdom is the earliest. This is Fairy Chamber Podcast and the Finnish Autumn Time Holidays. In ancient Finland there were all kinds of festivities connected to the autumn time, because for thousands of years Finland was an agricultural society. Many of the pagan customs and the deities, they were connected to the land. So many of these holidays that I'm going to talk here have pagan origins. During the Middle Ages, when the Catholic Church wanted to get rid of the pagan deities, the holidays they were renamed after Catholic saints. And the Church was not very consistent in their efforts, and many of the pagan customs continued all the way to the 19th century. And it was not entirely because of the Church that these holidays were not celebrated anymore with these pagan customs, but it also had a lot to do with the Industrial Revolution of the 20th century and people moving away from the villages and the countryside to cities. But if we start with September, the Finnish name of autumn is syksy, and September in Finnish is syyskuu, the autumn month. It's beautiful. The old Finnish name for the autumn equinox is called syysmatti, and this is the time where the winter begins. The 21st of September, bears go into hibernation, and matti, it refers into a nature spirit or maybe a group of spirits who brought the cool weather. Then there is October, which in Finnish is lokakuu. Loka can be translated as mud or sat or something like that. You know, the mixture of snow and rain. We have the day of Mikko. Mikon päivä on the 1st of October, and in this case is Saint Michael. So it's the day of Saint Michael. Mikonpäivä is the end of the harvest, and food sacrifices were left for the farming spirits. Talviyöt and talvipäivä, winter nights and winter day, these occur between 13th and 15th of October, and winter side of the year begins. People moved from outdoor works to indoors. Then there is day of Simo, Simonpäivä, day of Simeon, Saint Simeon. Days are getting darker. Small waters start to freeze. Fishermen arrange parties. Then my favorite celebration, Kekri, which was celebrated between the end of October and the beginning of November. And we will get into that. Then November, Marraskuu. It is derived from Old Finnish word marras, which means dead or dying earth. Marraskuu included all kinds of autumn time activities. There's jakoaika, dividing time, which happened between 13th of October and 10th of November. This was the sacred time between the old year and the new year. So it's a time of transition and time of the spirits. People were warned not to walk outside too much because the spirits might catch them and take them to the other side. 10th of November was Veripäivä, the blood day. This was connected to the slaughtering the animals because slaughtering was forbidden during the Kekri celebration. Blood day was the end of that and the slaughtering animals was allowed. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't have much to add here. This was followed by Martinpäivä, the day of Saint Martin. Martinpäivä was last of the autumn festivals. Dinner was prepared from seasonal ingredients. There was an old custom of children dressing up as martis, little ghosts, and this custom is still practiced in the countryside of Estonia, which is Finland's neighbor country, if some of you did not know that. There are three main autumn festivals that I wish to discuss with you now. Those are Mikonpäivä, Kekri, and Martinpäivä. So let's start with Mikonpäivä, the day of Saint Michael's. This name, Mikonpäivä, so word for it in Finnish is Mikkelinpäivä, but it has been suggested by folklorists and Finnish linguistics that all these holiday names that have the name of these Catholic saints, the original names were names of nature spirits, so perhaps Mikko was some kind of nature spirit originally. So in the old Finnish Wheel of the Year, this agricultural Wheel of the Year, Mikonpäivä was celebrated in the 29th of September. In southern Savonia, this day was known as Passinpäivä, the day of the ram. Mikonpäivä started the winter season and was known as the gate to winter, and opposite of it was Hela, the May Day festival, which was gate to summer. Finnish Wheel of the Year was based on agriculture and farming, so all these celebrations were connected to the growth of the crop. Mikonpäivä was the time when people moved from outdoors to indoor works, and it started the harvest period. After Mikonpäivä there was Runtuviikko, which was a free week for the servants, and it included parties, dances, meetings, and many people got married during Runtuviikko. I don't know why. Maybe because they had free time. Mikonpäivä was an important day for the shepherds because it was their last working day. To celebrate, they lit bonfires to the hills. There was all kinds of superstitions connected to Mikonpäivä. Livestock had to be brought inside before sunset. People were dressed up to their best, and when they took animals inside, they sang protection spells for the cattle. An arch was made of tree branches and put upon the gate that led into stables, and horses had to walk underneath the arch for protection. Sacrifices were made for the elves and spirits. Ancestors were thanked for protecting the cattle and keeping the livestock healthy. Sacrifices were a bit different in different parts of the country, of course. In some areas, drops of vodka and bread were left for the elves, and in some areas, silver was given. In the morning, porridge was left for the house elf. Into riihi. A riihi, it's a building where the rye was dried. In eastern Finland, Mikonpäivä was the day of the ram, and sheep and rams were sacrificed. This is very interesting because there is suggestions that Kekri was some kind of horned god or a ram god. So inner organs of the animal was buried underneath the spirit tree, and the head was hanged into the branches. Rest of the meat was served as dinner. Other foods of Passinpäivä were potatoes, beer, cheese, porridge and cabbage. Why rams were sacrificed is unclear. it is possible that they were sacrificed to please ancient fertility gods of the land or the ancestors. In Karelia, Mikonpäivä was known as Pokrova, and its symbol was the Wheel of Virgin Mary. Pokrov is Russian and translates as safety, protection. In the pagan areas of Karelia, the last hay of the harvest were taken into the sacred groves. In Finnish, these groves are known as lehto or hiisi. In the areas in Karelia where the religion was Russian Orthodox, the hays were carried inside and laid next to the images of saints, where they were blessed, and after that they were given to the cows to eat. There was all kinds of superstitions connected to Pokrova. In the night of Pokrova, horses wore warps during the night. It was believed that when they did that, they would not feel cold during winter months. Ingria is an area in northwestern Russia. In Ingria, when ladies took cattle inside the cattle shield, they sang greeting song for the earth spirits. In Ingria, Pokrova was a very common day to hunt and fish. Kekri was one of the biggest holidays celebrated in ancient Finland, and it was usually celebrated on the first or the second week of November, and it was not a communal celebration. It was celebrated within the family, and each family decided themselves when to celebrate Kekri, so there was no defined date for it. And celebration usually took place after all the harvest work was finished. Festivities lasted 3 days, so there was Kekri Eve, Kekri Day, and All Souls Day. If you're familiar with Anglo-Saxon calendars, of course there is All Saints Day and All Saints Eve, so this is pretty similar to that. So in modern Finnish calendar, Kekri takes place on the 1st of November and All Saints Day on the 2nd of November. As a festival, Kekri is similar to Samhain in Ireland, Calangaeve in Wales, and Day of the Dead in Mexico, and Velines in Lithuania, and many other celebrations, no doubt. It is believed that the word Kekri is derived from Finno-Ugric word Kekrai, which means a circle or a wheel. I should probably tell you a little bit what Finno-Ugric means. Finno-Ugric refers to a language group, an Uralic language group. So it's part of Uralic languages, and Finno-Ugric languages are Finnish, Estonian, and Hungarian. So the Finno refers to Finland and Ugric to Hungarian. The Finno-Ugric language group is an Uralic language because the origin of these languages come from Ural Mountains. It is a very small language group, but I use the word Finno-Ugric a lot when I speak about the origins of the words. Kekri is a Finno-Ugric word and originates from the word Kekrai, which means a wheel, and it has a very direct correlation with the wheel of the year. Kekri was the end of the year celebration, so it literally meant the turning point and turning of the wheel. It was the old Finnish New Year. As a word, it is similar to Finnish word kekkerit. Kekkerit means party. Kekri was part of the time period called jakoaika, the dividing time. It was the darkest time of the year, lasting from the beginning of October to December. In Finland, we call this time period as kaamos, when you don't really see the sun. It was believed that during jakoaika, spirits were walking among the living and dead were able to visit their homes and families. Many customs that belonged into Kekri celebration, they are now parts of the modern Finnish Christmas celebration. One of the most common customs was to eat a lot. It was recommended that one should eat at least 7 or 9 times a day during Kekri, and this is something that is part of also Finnish Christmas customs, and there's even a saying that you should be able to eat even during the Christmas night. And Kekri was a very massive celebration in ancient Finland, and preparing for the darkest time of the year, people needed to keep their hopes up, and one way to do that was to have a celebration where there was food served that were not available in any other day. And Kekri was also time for fortune telling and spells. Young people performed love spells and tried to find out who their future spouse would be. Melting tin was a popular custom. In modern day Finland, melting tin is part of the New Year's tradition. Many of the spells and Kekri divinations were connected to the well-being of the land and growing of the crop. One way to find out how the future crop would grow was to serve lots of vodka to the master of the house, and if he would not pass out, the crop would be good, and if he would pass out, the crop would not be successful. That's very Finnish. And then we come to the kekri and this ram connections. The Finnish literal language was created in the 16th century, and the biggest credit for this goes to the Finnish Archbishop Mikael Agricola, who translated several religious texts into Finnish. And he also wrote the first literal list of Finnish pagan deities. And in this list of deities he mentions a harvest god called Kekri. Whether Kekri was a harvest god is a constant debate. There is a possibility that Kekri was a harvest god, possibly borrowed from Baltic or Slavic folklore. Etymology of the word refers Kekri being the turning point of the wheel, and there was a character which was essential part of celebration, and that was called Kekri. The literal transition for that would be Kekri goat. Kekri Pukki was usually a young man who was dressed up in a fur that was turned upside down. He wore a mask and goat's horns. Kekri Pukki and a group of similar-looking characters went from house to house singing, dancing and performing dirty plays and jokes for free drinks. It is possible that Kekri Pukki was a fertility symbol, perhaps a representation of an early fertility god. In several countries and cultures, goat or ox-like animals are connected to fertility. Interestingly enough, in Finland, Kekri Pukki was the character that eventually inspired the character of Joulupukki, which is like the Finnish version of Father Christmas. Along with young men walked a group of young women called kekrittäret, and they were women dressed up in white sheets and their faces covered with white paint. Then there were a third group called kekrimöröt. They were groups of little children dressed up as goats and spirits and demons, and these children, they smudged their faces and wore old sheets. They visited from house to house dancing and performing little plays during Kekri. This custom does not exist anymore in modern-day Finland. But in Estonia, in countryside, there is a similar custom that takes place in Martipäev, 10th of November. Kekri was time to honor the ancestors and passed away relatives. Master of the house invited the ancestors in the Kekri Eve by going outside and pouring some ale to the road. It was believed that the scent of the beer would wake up the ancestors and they would follow him inside the house. Dinner was prepared and places were also served for the ancestors. It was believed that spirits would enjoy their dinner while the family members would go into the sauna. Sauna was prepared for the ancestors as well. There was clean towels and vihtas reserved for the ancestors. Sauna was warmed up for the whole night, and it was believed that the ancestors would stay in the sauna till morning. Kekri was time to remind people that those who have passed away are never completely gone. They just live in another realm, invisible to us. In modern-day Finland, Kekri is mostly celebrated by neo-pagans. There are some pagan traditions that have been reintroduced to the wider public within recent years. One of them is burning the Kekri goat or Kekri Pukki in the cities and villages. Kekri goat is a goat made from willow and it is lit on fire during Kekri evening. Families and friends gather together to watch the burning. Goat is usually 2 to 3 meters high and wide. It can be even bigger than that. This custom originates from old pagan custom to burn fires during Kekri to keep evil spirits away. It was believed that during Kekri, evil spirits, martaat, would fly around doing bad deeds. Many of the Kekri customs can now be found from Finnish Christmas and New Year celebration. Straws were a big part of Kekri. In the agricultural society, straws were powerful symbols that represented fertility of the land. All kinds of decorations made from the straw, like tiny straw goats, were symbols of Kekri, but nowadays they are symbols of Christmas in Finland and in Sweden. There was also an announcement made for Kekri peace called Kekri Rauha, another thing that happens in Finnish Christmas for all people and animals to have peaceful Kekri celebration. In modern-day Finland, each Christmas Eve, in Turku, the old capital, Christmas peace, joulurauha is announced. Kekri was celebrated in Finland for a very long time. It was not until the 18th and 19th centuries when almost all Finns were converted into Lutheranism. Kekri was a very popular holiday among the people. From the end of the 19th century, there are markings that people were still celebrating Kekri in the 18th century and in the 19th century. When Lutheranism was the only approved religion, Kekri was banned, and some of the punishments for people who celebrated Kekri were fines, or they might even end up to prison for a while, which is pretty harsh. Celebrations slowly vanished in the beginning of the 20th century. This was partially because of Christianity, but even bigger factor was the Industrial Revolution, which forced many people to move away from the countryside to cities to look for work. Kekri, the Great Harvest Festival, slowly disappeared. Kekri has been brought back recent years, and there has been more research made about it. I personally find Kekri a very fascinating holiday. I personally do lots of ancestral work around this time. I have seen the Kekri goat being burnt a couple of times. I like that tradition. Let's move on to Martinpäivä. Martinpäivä was the last autumn holiday, and this is when the new year truly began. Martinpäivä, the day of Saint Martin, takes place in the 10th of November. It was a big food party. Family was invited, friends, neighbors, all family, maybe even a whole village. And this was really the beginning of the new year. If there were old grudges, people had to solve them. Marttimaita vahvistaapi was the old expression, which meant that the earth was getting frozen. Fishing in the open waters was stopped around these times. The shepherds asked for their payments. In Ingria and in Estonia, the children dressed up as martis, ghost spirits, and they sang and asked the mistress of the house to give them food and drinks. And when they came, they brought them luck for the house. Common foods in northern and southern Ostrobothnia were sausages and bread made from barley. Thank you for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed this very first episode. If you want to find me on social media, you can pretty much find me everywhere with the name Fairy Chamber. I'm on Instagram. I have a Facebook group called Fairy Chamber Updates if you are on Facebook. Stay well, dear people, and I'll see you soon.